Namaskar and welcome to our next session on yogic life. So we have to remind ourselves every day that yogic life is truly a revolutionary life in its deepest sense, right? So
Namaskara, Bhagwan.
unlike a lot of philosophies where mostly they have dogmas, and even if they have a little bit of good things that they say, but those things are never implemented, right? They talk big things, but nothing gets implemented, right? Whereas in the yogic life, whatever we talk, we try to implement that in our life. That is why yogic life is a revolutionary life, and we have to treat every day as our first day, right? So then if you don't do that, what happens? Otherwise the days and years go by and we get entrenched in old ways, and it becomes very difficult to change them. So our body and mind is a laboratory. So every time we find something better, we should throw out the old thing as though it has no value, right? Obviously it doesn't have value. And if we got something better, then we should change to the new thing which is better. And what is the purpose of holding on to the old thing that it has when it is useless, right? We should treat every day as a new day. Past is past. Like Shiva says that Vartamaneshu Varteta. We have to live in the present. Past, we may say, oh, my past. People may, think about events in the past or think about the habits in the past. But there is no use of thinking about the past. Every day should be for the better, right? We should live in the present, right? There's no point in thinking about the past events and feeling sad or feeling sorrow, right? There's no use in that. So yogic life is a truly revolutionary life, and it has a lot to offer, and we have to embrace it, right? If it inspires you, if it touches your heart, then we have to adopt them, right? So there is a feeling that the religion should be kept separate from politics, right? Well, that is true when the religion represents something dogmatic which has no head or tail, right? So to which we cannot apply any logic, then it should be kept separate, right? But the religion and spirituality are two different things, right? They're completely different things. The spirituality the true spirituality, something which is true, doesn't propose anything which has no head or tail, doesn't propose anything which is dogmatic, doesn't propose anything dogmatic. So spirituality doesn't propose anything where you have to tell your child, you have to just follow this, you cannot ask why, right? Children are actually allowed to ask why. They would like to know the reason. If you tell them to do this, if you tell them to do a particular thing, then they always like to ask why. And then, but you don't have an answer for some of the dogmatic things, and you tell your child, don't ask me why, you just follow what I'm saying, right? It shouldn't be like that. So if you don't have an answer and if it doesn't make sense, then it is not right to tell your child that it is just this way, right? This is just the way it is, right? I don't know the reason, so you just have to follow it. Don't ask me why, don't ask me the logic, right? So if we are talking about true spirituality, then it should not be separate from politics, because what we are learning over here, the Yama and Niyama, right? We want our politicians also to be moral, right? We want them to follow the spiritual morality. We want not just the simple morality, we want them to follow the spiritual morality. The Yama and Niyama, they are the first two steps in Ashtanga Yoga. Then if our politicians are not going to be moral, then what is the use, right? So they have to follow Ahimsa, they have to follow Satya, they have to follow all of that. If they understand the true meaning of ahimsa, if somebody attacks the country, they will realize that they have to defend the country, right? Because it has far-reaching ramifications. So in today's world, there is a very big gap between morality and law. So the laws of a country and what is actual morality don't go hand in hand, because the country is not advanced enough to be able to adopt the true rules of morality. If we were to adopt the true rules of morality, then eating meat would be illegal, right? What right do we have to kill animals for food, right? So animals also have rights. It's not that they don't have rights. They also been created by Paramapurusha. They also have a right to live in this society, right? On what basis, or who has given us the right to decide that we are going to kill this animal and eat? Just because we cannot speak, does it give us a right to say that that is it's silently observing, so I'm just going to kill and eat it, right? So the laws of the country and the actual morality should go hand in hand, right? If they go hand in hand, then killing animals for meat would be illegal, right? And there will come a day when humanity as a society will become sufficiently developed that we are able to stand up and say, no, we are not going to kill the animals which are our brothers and sisters. We're not going to kill the cows, the chickens, the lambs. We're not going to kill them. We're not going to eat their babies. We're not going to drink their milk. We're not going to eat the cheese, right? We're not going to eat the paneer. The cows will feed their milk to their babies, right? So we are not going to drink the milk of the cows. We are not going to put them on factory farms. We're not going to kill them when they stop producing milk. We're not going to do any of that, right? Let the cows live happily in their own society. Let the chickens live happily in their own society. Let all the animals have their own society, right? We should not unnecessarily breed them for our own selfish pleasure, right? There will come a day, right? But up until now, the laws of the country and what are actual moral guidelines, they do not go hand in hand, but they should actually go hand in hand. So this is what we mean when we say the spirituality and politics should not be far apart. Rather, they should be going in the same direction. They should be moving in the same direction, because we want everybody to be moral, regardless, regardless whether they're right in the country or not, right? So even more, if they are leaders, we want them to be moral, right? They should follow proper principles of morality, right? First among them is the ahimsa, right? So that we should remind ourselves that the yogic life that we are leading is a revolutionary life, right? Everything that we are talking about, the food, everything, the nirjal upvasa, asanas, vyapak soch, all of it, right? We have to think, how can I do better every day? This is something we should ask ourselves every day. How can I do better? We should not have any attachment to our old ways. There's no point. What is the point of holding on to the old ways when they make no sense? Right? There's a whole science behind food, which is so important, because all the cells of our body are made of that. So if we continue eating the food which is not healthy, right, whatever your age may be, right, then you're causing a harm to yourself, right? Eating good food has nothing to do with age, whether somebody is 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, or 100 years, or 20 or 5 or whatever. Everybody should be eating proper food, right? We should not have any attachment to our old ways of eating, right? Old ways of living. They have to take them out of the closet and put them in the garbage, right? They have no role to play, absolutely no role to play. When we got something better, we should use that. So everything that we are learning here, treat your body and mind as a laboratory. Experiment with it, right? So don't just hear something and just go with it. You just experiment it on your own body and see how it is impacting your mind. Take a particular item, right, and see what is happening to your body, right? If it is better, then adopt it, right? So all our guidelines, right, what we should do and what we should not do, all those guidelines are in our website, right? The guidelines on Nirjala Upvasa, right? There is nobody who cannot do Nirjala Upvasa. Everybody can do Nirjala Upvasa. Our body is designed for that. Vyapak Soch, regular exercise, sadhana, asanas, all of that, right? So, it's not like some other, you're learning some new skill, right? There may be many good things in that, right? Like, for instance, Tai Chi, right? Many people are wanting to learn that, right? There may be good things in it. But yoga is not like a dance class or something, right? It's not just like another hobby, right? Other things that you do, like dance class or whatever that you do, it is not a way of life, right? They may learn some art and they may be good at it, right? But that is not a way of life, right? Yoga is a way of life, which when adopted changes one completely, transforms one from being outside human, making one outside human and also inside human. Generally we are outside human, inside we are animal, but yoga will change you to make you human both inside and outside. That is what yoga does, right? It's completely transformative. We should all consider ourselves as revolutionaries in our own life, right? It's not like being revolutionary in terms of like overthrowing a government or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here, right? As an individual in your life, I should not have attachment to the old ways. When I have something better, when I get something better, I should go for that, right? So this is a very important thing, right? So we've talked about all the various aspects of your yogic life: food, the upvasa, vyapak soch, regular exercise, asanas. All of these are part of the foundation of what it is to live a yogic life. And anybody who implements these things find their life completely changed, right? It will completely change one's vibration, completely changing the food, right? Doing the Nirjala Upvasa, doing Vyapak Soch, doing daily asanas, doing daily exercise, all of these will have a huge combined impact. It's like it just multiplies, right? So we have actually we've shared about our experiences, and we also had those people who are regularly practicing the the various aspects of yogic life come and share their experience with you guys, right? So we should all sincerely try to implement all of those things. If we have forgotten, we have not implemented and we have forgotten what those things are, we should go back to our classes and re-review those classes, on ahara, right, on Nirjala Upvasa, Vyapak Soch, all of that, and try to bring those aspects into your life, right? So here now we are talking about the Yama and Niyama, right, the moral aspect of life, right? 99.9% of the people around the planet, if you ask them, they will tell you that they think they lead a moral life, and it is indeed true that they are leading a moral life, right? But the moral life that they are talking about is sahajanaitikata, simple morality. And here we are trying to make a clear distinction between simple morality and spiritual morality, right? Morality should be understood in its simple form as well as the spiritual form, and a commitment needs to be made to follow spiritual morality before learning sadhana. Even before you are given diksha and you're learning sadhana, you have to make a commitment to follow the spiritual morality, the yama and niyama. And as you learn sadhana and as you start doing sadhana, you become more steady in the spiritual morality, right? This spiritual morality is something much deeper. It's a deeper concept compared to the simple morality, right? So we are going into depth of this. So on one hand, one has to make a commitment to follow it. On the other hand, right, spiritual morality is something very deep, and it needs sadhana to bring it to its fulfillment, right? One fulfills the other, the spiritual morality and sadhana. The commitment which one makes to learn and follow spiritual morality at the time of learning sadhana is a commitment to verily grow into the shoes which are too big, right? Because the real fulfillment of spiritual morality, it comes only when one is doing sadhana, right? So we are what we are talking is, we are talking about eliminating the tendency that we have, different tendencies, the tendencies of stealing, tendency to lie, right? People in general feel that they don't have a tendency to commit theft, but if there is a situation, if there is an adverse situation, people may be tempted to do it, right? To eliminate that tendency, for that we need to do sadhana, right? All the different aspects, the 10 aspects of yama and niyama, right? The very tendency within the mind is accomplished with the that is through sadhana, right? The tendency to not do a certain thing is achieved through sadhana. One makes a commitment to it, and through the process of sadhana, the root nature of the mind is changed in such a way that the tendency to do various things which people do, even though they consider themselves as moral, that very tendency is eliminated. So that is what we mean by saying growing into the shoes which are too big, just like a child of 5 years old, right? Like a child of a small child, 5 years old. So generally when we purchase shoes or something, we generally purchase the shoe, the size which is little bit bigger, right? Knowing that the child is going to grow into it in a matter of months, right? So we won't buy the exact size, like you're buying a dress or something, we won't buy the exact size, we buy something which is bigger, because we know the child is going to grow. Similarly, in spiritual life, we commit to things which are bigger than us at the time that we are making the commitment, which is very beautiful thing, because we are going to grow into those things. How we are going to grow into those things is because by the process of doing sadhana, right? So what is that spiritual morality which is different from simple morality? That is what we are seeing in this pravachan. This is a big part of it, right? This is one component of it, that the mind, as the nature of the mind changes, the tendency which people have to do small things which are not correct, that gets completely eliminated. So it's not merely that one reminds oneself that one should not do that, right? But that desire to do such a thing is completely eliminated by doing sadhana, right? So that is what we are talking about, eliminating the tendency of doing something, right? So we were actually talking about brahmacharya, right? So, we talked about ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya. There's a fourth aspect, right? In the brahmacharya, we said that this term is not correctly understood by the society, right? What is the correct meaning of brahmacharya? Brahmacharya means brahmani vicharanam. That means being attached, that is to remain attached to Brahma. That is what is brahmacharya, right? Brahmani vicharanam, right? When we do our day-to-day activities, when we look at the objects of the world, when we come in contact with the objects of the world, our mind becomes very crude, right? But by the constant interaction with the material objects, our mind gets engrossed in the material objects, and as a result of it, our mind gets very, very crude, right? So when we say we are practicing brahmacharya, what we mean is that we treat these very objects, these different objects with which we interact, as different expressions of that gunanvit purusha, right? Not as crude forms. And by having this bhava, what happens is that your mind doesn't get crudified by this kind of ideation that everything that is in front of me is a expression of Brahma. It is nothing but the Gunanvit Purusha. Everything is made of that Purusha. So the something which is in front of me is nothing but Gunanvit Purusha. By having this bhava, what happens is that your mind doesn't get crudified, even though we go from object to object, but it doesn't get attached to these objects. It and the mind doesn't get detached from Brahma, right? So we will have this cosmic feeling with every object that we interact with. So this is what is called as Shreya Sadhana. Shreya Sadhana is when you interact with the objects and you get engrossed in the material objects. That is Shreya Sadhana. Shreya Sadhana is, even though when you interact with the objects of the world, you have the ideation that everything is an expression of that Brahma. And by this what we are doing, we are converting the kama into prema, right? The kama is the attraction towards the crude objects, whereas prema is the attraction for the supreme, right? So that is what is the process of, that is what we call as brahmacharya. This brahmacharya bhava has been misinterpreted by many in the society. They think brahmacharya bhava means preservation of semen, right? So but when we look at the word brahmacharya, brahma or charya, when you look at the Sanskrit meaning of these two terms, it doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with semen, right? Brahmacharya means brahmani vicharana, one who is going seeking Brahma, right? One is being attached to Brahma, one is having a cosmic feeling towards everything in this world, right? So generally speaking, brahmacharya means one who is preserving the semen, right? That is what the measures that they take to preserve the semen is called as brahmacharya, right? So one who follows the yogi guidelines, right? A male who is young or old, or married or unmarried, a yogi, a sadhaka, he will ideate on Paramapurusha throughout the day, right? And because he is ideating on Paramapurusha throughout the day, automatically it eliminates the possibility of producing more semen, right? So even though brahmacharya doesn't mean preservation of semen, but the preservation of semen, the prevention of formation of surplus semen is the outcome of practicing brahmacharya, right? So by following the yogic guidelines, we don't have to do anything. By following the yogic guidelines, the preservation of semen automatically happens, and prevention of surplus formation automatically happens. So we don't need to do anything special for that, and this term brahmacharya needs to be properly understood. Okay, so Pushpalata Bhagini, do you want to take?
Bhagini. Sorry, mute. I didn't unmute it. Tell me.
Yeah. 1 second. Let me. Okay, can you see my screen? Please read. People who by different.
Bhagini. People who by different suppressive methods, people who by different suppressive methods seek to prevent the discharge of semen create a bad reaction on their body and mind. Their bodies become rough and lack in luster. A suppression of the sexual desire results in other desires, especially anger, taking a more terrible form. So the people who are trying to prevent the discharge of semen happen to create a bad reaction in their body and mind. So the body becomes rough, they go out of their mind, and a suppression of the sexual desire results to other desires, especially anger and other emotions, which they take a terrible form, creating problem to others also.
Take the next paragraph also, Bhagini.
In the olden times, only the actual meaning of brahmacharya was accepted. Later, when society was dominated by the intelligentsia, the so-called monks, who had taken to complete exploitation, thought that if ordinary citizens were allowed to pursue spiritual practices, they might lose the machinery of exploitation at any moment, of which they were so fond. If common people are inspired by spiritual ideals, their rationality will grow and grow. The monks realized, therefore, that the people will have to be kept maimed and helpless. Fear and inferiority complex will have to be infused in people to exploit them. They found that such an exploited mass consisted of ordinary worldly people, most of whom were married. If therefore the laws of Simon was anyhow declared as anti-religious, they would be able to gain their end without difficulty. So, in the olden times, we have seen only the actual meaning of brahmacharya was accepted. But, so they were, when the world was dominated by intelligentsia, the so-called monks, who had taken to complete exploitation, thought that if ordinary citizens were allowed to pursue spiritual practices, so they might lose the machinery of exploitation at any moment, which they are so fond. So if the common people are inspired by spiritual ideals, the rationality will grow. Now here you please explain what is that rationality. What do you mean now? Okay. So the monks realize that, therefore, that if people will have to be kept, will have to grow, they have to be kept maimed and helpless, and the thought of fear and inferiority complex should be infused in people to exploit them. So they found that the exploited mass was only in the common people or the ordinary worldly people, and most of them were married. If therefore the laws of Simon was anyhow declared as anti-religious, they would be able to gain their end without difficulty. Bhagini?
Yeah, Bhagini.
In this I have two doubts. Okay. You explained that first, that rationality I didn't understand. Second thing is, those days everything was going on properly, actually. Mostly all of them were getting married with before 30 years or something like that, and so they were able to follow everything properly. It was going on. So that this one of what to say, brahmacharyam, grihastham, then sannyasi, then they go into meet, like that it used to go. But most of them are not getting married till the age of 35, 36 and all. Okay. What will be there? This one. That also you tell. Okay, I have a doubt.
What will be there? What is the question? What will be there?
See, when they get married, so automatically the semen will be used, and they will be going properly into that way path, actually. Now the people are not getting married at all, mostly. Even till the age of 35, 40 also some people have not married now. Maximum 10% now it is going, and it is growing actually. No. Will they be able to follow this path, go in this path?
Okay. Let me clarify. First, let me address what is said in this paragraph, then I'll address your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Nicely said. So here there are 2 or 3 points that are being expressed. The first point is that the artificial ways of suppressing discharge of semen do not work, and they have a negative effect on the body and mind. And artificial ways of suppressing the discharge of semen should not be employed. It is not proper. right? So if somebody engages in yogic life, proper yoganishta jivanam, then this will happen in a very natural way. And engaging in unnatural means is not proper. Doing it naturally by living the proper human life, the yogic life, then it happens naturally. And that is the only proper way to do it. So that is one, right? So then there is a long history of these intellectuals, right? The so-called intelligentsia, right? There are different phases of the society, right? So you, as you said, the jati vada, right? So the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the jati vada, right? Actually speaking, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, these are all mental states, and somebody is not a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Vipra by birth. These are all mental states within one family. So you can have one child who is having the Vipra mentality, and one child who is having the Kshatriya mentality, and one who has the Vaishya mentality, and there is another child who has the Shudra mentality. It has nothing to do with the family name or birth, right? These are all mental outlooks in life. And not only that, and one person can go through these different phases in their own life, right? So in one phase, they had the Kshatriya mentality, they joined the army. Then after they finished the service in the army, they went and got a PhD in physics, and then their mentality turned more into the Vipra mentality. And then later on they became a businessman, and they started business, and then developed the Vaishya mentality. And so people go through the different phases, and it has right and it has nothing to do with the birth. It has everything to do with the mental tendencies, right? So the reason I'm mentioning that over here is because the so-called sannyasis, they're not really proper sannyasis, but the vipras and of the different ages, right? What we call that, the dark ages, where these intellectuals wanted to have an upper hand of the society, and they started to misuse their status in the society by suppressing the masses and instilling fear complex in all people, right? That we are superior to you and you should surrender to us and come to us for the different ceremonies. We'll and you have to pay us, right? You have to give us money, right? These kind of things were the whole the mentality that was going on, the intellectual mentality, and which still exists in several parts of the world even today, right? So what we mean by when somebody who is more powerful and more intellectual and comes and tells you things which are dogmatic, which are not rational, people have a tendency to follow those things because of fear, right? They don't use the intellect to question that and say that, why are you asking me to do this? It's not rational, right? By accepting to the superiority, they're not using their rationality. So on the other hand, when you understand what is the true meaning of brahmacharya, and here brahmacharya doesn't mean brahmacharya, vanaprastha, sannyasa, grahastha. No, that is not the brahmacharya that we're talking about. Where brahmachari means, how it was understood as brahmachari means one who will not get married and continue studying. That is not how it is understood over here. Brahmachari means brahmani vicharanam, one who has dedicated his life to serving Paramapurusha. That is what is a brahmachari, who is having the Brahma bhava all the time, who is ideating on Paramapurusha, right? And it has nothing to do whether you are a grahastha, you are a sannyasi, or you are a vanaprastha or whatever, right? Every human being can be a brahmachari. Every human being can follow brahmacharyam, right? So here what we are talking about is not the different stages of life that we just attend. Traditionally that's what we have understood is first it is brahmacharya, and then grihastha, then vanaprastha, then sannyasa. No, that is not what we are talking about. Brahmacharyam can be followed by everybody, even if you are a grihastha or you are a sannyasi. Everybody can follow brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means brahmani vicharanam, right? Brahma is one, and anybody can have the Brahma bhava all the time, right? So that was actually the meaning of brahmacharya, and that is how it was understood in the older times when the rishis were doing all of this. They understood they were rishis. They were called rishis because they were brahmani vicharanam. They were called brahmins because they attained Brahma. That is why they were called as Brahmins, right? So Brahma janati iti brahmanaha. One who knows Brahma is a brahmana. Later on, the society misinterpreted all these terms and used them for their own advantage and started exploiting people and all of that, right? But when we understand, when we pursue the yoganishta jivanam, when we pursue the spiritual practices, when we understand what the true meaning of all of these terms are, then what happens, by more and more and more, by following all these the spiritual morality, and by understanding the right meaning of these terminologies, what happens is that the rationality will grow within us. The rationality will grow within us, and we will understand what is the meaning of everything. And if somebody is saying something wrong to you, we'll be able to question it. That you'll be able to question it, and you'll understand what is a dogma and what is not a dogma, right? So that is what it means by the rationality growing, right? So the intellectuals, what they did was they used a psychology of superiority complex, right? And they instilled inferiority complex in the family people, right? The common people, by use of the brahmacharya concept. They said that we are brahmachari, we are not married, we are not married, we are more superior, we are learned, whereas you guys are all grihastha, and you are producing children and all that. We are better, much better compared to you, therefore you bow down to us. That is what the mentality was, right? So so by having children and all of this, right, by having children also, you can follow brahmacharya, right? Their concept in the olden days, their concept was, when they misinterpreted the term, they said that if you are married, you can't follow brahmacharya. We are all not married, we are brahmacharya, we are brahmacharis, and therefore what we say is more superior, right? So this terminology was terribly misused historically in the society. It's like how ahimsa was misused, satya was misused, asteya was not understood at all. Similarly, brahmacharya up till today is not understood in the society. So it has societal implications and ramifications which are all very negative, and which we continue to see even in today's world, right? So what has been described in this paragraph, that loss of semen was declared as anti-religious, right? It's the same concept which the Jainists have, right? So as a result, those utilize the sexual faculty for having children in a natural way, that makes them inferior to the so-called monks, right? So this was actually completely a misguided concept. This is a completely misguided concept, whereas the true meaning of brahmacharya is anybody, whoever, who's having the cosmic ideation on Brahma, he is a brahmachari, right? And what you're asking today of people getting married in later age, and what was your question on that, Bhagini? People getting married at later age?
No, my question was not with this. See, now the monks used to think that the people who have been married are not worth going to sannyasi, this one, like that. But these days, so to an extent, the married people understood now what is the difference, what they shouldn't do, what they should do, and they are slowly moving to the path of yoganishta, like the path of discipline. They are moving to seek Brahma or to seek the infinite. But the people of these days, actually, the children especially, they don't do anything on their own. See, I'm not trying to tell anyone in particular. Always in the comfort of some money or their parents or someone, and they get, either they want to get married or they don't want to compromise on their comforts to someone else, to a third person, so they don't want to get married. So when will how will their and when will their desires get end? That was my question.
When will their desires for what?
For anything, for to move. I mean, see, now they don't want to go into that, the next path of, they just want to have money, money, money every time. And they don't want to compromise with the other person, or அந்த விட்டு கொடுக்கிற இது வர மாட்டேங்குது இல்லையா? That's the main thing. So that should, how that can be eliminated in them.
Exactly. That's a very, very simple answer, is bring them to the yogic life. That's the simplest answer.
Yes.
Simplest answer for that is bring them all to the yogic life. They should learn sadhana. The moment they learn sadhana, automatically sacrificing for others will happen very naturally. Adjusting with others will happen very, very naturally, right? And it is not a rule that everybody should get married in this world, right? If they want to dedicate their life for Brahma, that is also perfectly fine. They can dedicate their life for service. They need to do service. When they do service, their mind expands, right? So the simple answer to your question is how they can live in the society and adjust, right, and not be very selfish. The simple answer is bring them all to Yoganishta Jivanam. When they come to Yoganishta Jivanam and start living a yogic life, start learning sadhana, then their mind completely transforms. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Even if you do it for 6 months sincerely sadhana, what happens? Your mind completely changes. This tyaga bhava, doing tyaga for somebody else, that comes automatically, right? Then you will learn how to live in a society, how to adjust with other people, other members of the society. You are not always self-focused, that you are always not selfish, thinking only about yourself. Because in today's society, what is happening is everybody is leading an animal life. Everybody is leading a pashu jivanam. So they're running after money, they're running after wealth, they're running after name, fame, right? This is pashu vyavahara. That is what they're doing. So they're not able to think about the higher goal of life. They're not able to think what is ultimately the goal of life. We all have an desire for the infinite. That is what distinguishes us from animals. They're not able to understand all of that. What is a true manava jivanam? They're not understanding that. Because they're not understanding that, their eyes have not been opened, and they're continuing to follow pashu vyavahara, and they're getting influenced by the different beliefs from different societies, and the philosophies of the West coming to the East, and the philosophies of the East going to the West, in terms of the beliefs, right? Not getting married till they are 45, right? This is something not very it was not the thing of the past, right? People were getting married at reasonable time, even though marriage is not absolutely, marriage is required for the purpose of producing children, right? So from that perspective, people were getting married at reasonable age. Now what happens is that more and more and more and more we have the pashu swabhava to the peak, and the selfish tendencies to the peak. It's a very materialistic world, and in this world nobody can see beyond themselves. So that is what is happening. So the simple solution to all of this is they need to come to Yoganishta Jivanam. They need to come to Shivir in Varanasi. Bring all of them, whoever you have in your mind, bring them all to Varanasi. Let them lead a yogic life for 1 week. Let them learn sadhana. Let them follow it for sincerely for 1 year, right? Then their life will completely transform. Let them do it even for 6 months. That's more than enough. They themselves will see that their whole life has changed. Bhagini?
Thank you, Bhagini.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next. Shubhrajyoti, Bhagini, you want to take?
Yes, Bhagini. And the result was promptly achieved. Our ordinary worldly people began to think that they, by leading a merry life, had committed a serious wrong, a heinous sin. They had indulged in activities against brahmacharya. The monk observed celibacy and were therefore far superior. The so-called recluses took advantage of the situation and have without difficulty been exploiting the society. So as a result of
take the next one also, it's related to this.
Next paragraph. Hello?
Yeah.
Whether these recluses in fact are Nastika brahmacharis, those who don't face semen at all, can be decided by argument.
Cannot be decided by argument.
This can be decided by medical tests. But it can be said without doubt that many of so-called monks will not pass this test. So as a result, people start to think that they have to be unmarried for brahmacharya, and if they have they are married, then it's a sin because they have indulged in activities against brahmacharya, and the monk was far superior, and the reclusive people, they took advantage of the situation, and they gave the wrong definition of brahmacharya and exploiting the society. That reclusive people are Nastic brahmacharis. They are not true brahmacharis, and we cannot decide them that they are brahmacharis by arguments. For that, they need to be medical test, and they will fail the test who are so called brahmacharis.
Recluse means somebody who is living away from the society in a very secluded location, right? Like a sannyasi.
So, how the medical test will how they will fail the medical test? What is that medical test exactly?
So the medical test is whether their semen has been released or not, discharge of semen happened or not. That they can probably test by medical test.
Okay, so
right, because the wrong understanding of brahmachari is that somebody who preserves the semen and who is not married, who is maintaining celibacy, is what is the brahmachari, right? That is how it was understood. So if somebody says they're a brahmachari and they're a sannyasi, they're living far away from the society and they're maintaining celibacy, then whether they're really doing that or not, or they're just a hypocrite, right? People behind the back, they do a lot of things, right? The so-called monks, behind the back, it comes in the news article later on that they were engaged in sexual activity with this and this person and all that. It comes out in newspapers, right? So these people are hypocrites, complete hypocrites. They befooled the society for generations and yuga after yuga, right? And even today this exists, where people have wrong understanding of brahmacharya, and these people, the so-called brahmacharis, behind the curtain they're doing something else, and in the front of the society they're doing something else, right? They're showing that they're faking that they are brahmacharis, they're celibates, and behind the curtain they're engaging in all sexual activity and all that, right? So they're doing this with the intent of deceiving the people and exploiting them. That is their intent. So the so-called monks who do this, they in front of the people they behave like as if they are brahmacharis, the so-called brahmacharis, and they collect money and they do all that, and behind the back they're leading a life of luxury and they're engaging in all kind of vices, right? So the point over here is that we need to understand what is the true meaning of brahmacharya, right? So whether we are talking about ahimsa or satya or brahmacharya, the proper sense of the word has to be understood. Only then can we remove the dogma from the society, right? If we don't understand the true meaning, then how can you remove the dogma from the society, right? So due to the incorrect interpretation of the term brahmacharya, there was a resultant exploitation when these concepts are all misused with a negative intent, right? So these people who are misusing, they are pure hypocrites. They don't follow Yoganishta Jivanam themselves. They don't know what the word Yoganishta Jivanam means. They use religion and they use all other doctrines to exploit the dogmatic doctrines to exploit the society, right? This happens throughout the society in different religions up to today, right? So that is what it is saying. These recluses means those who are living, those so-called monks who are naishtika brahmacharis, that is, who are celibates, who don't waste their semen at all, right? We cannot tell them whether they are true brahmacharis. According to this incorrect interpretation also, we cannot tell them whether we cannot tell whether they are truly brahmacharis or not, right? Unless we do a medical test, only then it can be said about whether they are truly the monk according to the so-called interpretation of brahmacharya, right? So all these monks, so-called monks, are many of them are fakes, right? So their intent is to collect money, exploit the society. That is what their intent is. And truly whether they are following that brahmacharya, the so-called brahmacharya, the misinterpreted terminology is also we don't know, right?
So it means that brahmacharya means to live near the god, and all other processes are natural.
Yeah, brahmacharya means having seeing this world, every object in this world as an expression of that Brahma and living in that bhava every minute of the day. Everything that is every object in front of me is a manifestation of that Gunanvit Purusha, right? Everything is Brahma. That bhava that you have, that is what is brahmacharya. Seeing everything as Brahma, that is what is brahmacharya. But that is not how it is understood in the society. It is misinterpreted, and the reason it is misinterpreted is because this kind of misinterpretation was spread in the society for the purpose of exploitation by the so-called monks, so-called intellectuals, right? They wanted to exploit the society. They said brahmacharya means somebody who doesn't get married, right? So there are only very few people, these sannyasis, who don't get married. They live separately from the society, whereas the rest of the society, they're grahasthas, they get married, they have children, therefore they're inferior. You have to be a sannyasi to be superior. You are inferior, so I am superior, so I tell you what I tell you, you have to follow. That's what the so-called monks tell, right? I'm a brahmachari, I'm not married, I've dedicated my life for this, so I'm telling you something, you have to blindly follow what I'm saying. That is how it was there in the society. These recluses, that is what the so-called monks. Tell me what you understood.
Yes, Bhagini, and what about the other processes they are mentioning here, like discharging and all? They are natural, all natural, right? We don't need to do anything.
No, somebody who leads the Yoganishta Jivanam, who's actually following the true meaning of brahmacharya, they will not have the discharge. It will all be regulated by following the Yoganishta Jivanam.
Okay.
Tell me what you understood in these two paragraphs.
Should I explain it again?
Yeah, I just want to see you understood what I said.
Yes, beginning. As you mentioned that the hypocrites, they only make the society fool, and they have made the conclusion that only the people who are not get married and live far from the society are only brahmacharis. But it's not like that. Brahmachari means to see Brahma in everything, to be in a bhava of Brahm, and there is no condition like married or unmarried, and that's all again.
Nice to say, Padma. Yeah, correct. So there's nothing called as married or unmarried. Anybody can be in the brahmacharya bhava. Okay, good. Okay, we'll go to the next paragraph. Pushpalata Bhagini, please take that.
Marriage is a natural function like birth, food, sleep, etc. Therefore, there is nothing to be condemned in it, nor does it go against dharma. When a great man or an elevated sadhaka is not prohibited from taking food, etc., there is no reason why or he or she should be debarred from marriage. But proper control is no doubt greatly needed, not only for food and sleep, but in every walk of life. The lack of such control causes disease. Food is essential for life, but absence of control over eating causes indigestion. A bath is refreshing, but in the absence of control over bath, that is long continued bath, would make one catch cold. Similarly, marriage has its function, but the absence of restraint in married life would cause various diseases in body and mind. So this clearly says that those days the monks who are following that the people who are married cannot go into a yogic life, but is wrong. So now marriage is a natural function like bath, food and sleep. So if there is nothing wrong if you are married, and it does not go against dharma. So when a great man is not, or an elevated sadhana is not prohibited from taking food, etc., so there's no reason why he should not be, why he should not get married and then go to a yogic life. But everything should be in control only. Like if you take food which is essential for life, that is over. When there is no control over taking food, then it will lead to many diseases like etc. Now we see sugar and BP is increasing for so many people. Similarly, a bath is refreshing, but that should not be for a long this one, because we are likely to catch cold. Similarly, there should be a restraint in marriage life also, and otherwise the absence of the restraint will cause various diseases in body and mind.
Nice to say, Bhagini.
As it
That is the idea over here.
No.
Sorry?
That's okay. I also got an answer to my question apart, but still I have one doubt. Now you are telling to come to the yogic life after enjoying certain things. Okay, but in today's society, will these people who are not married or very late married, or not at all getting, will they be able to what to say, in ordinary life? If now I have enjoyed eating nice food or earning money, and also all my commitments have been done after getting married, and now I feel we should move into the part of yogic life. Will this be achieved by those people? That was my question actually. So I think I'll get it.
Yeah, see, this yogic life is for everybody. First of all, yogic life is for everybody. It's for every human who has a body and mind can enter yogic life. But what happens is that we also have our sanskaras, right? We have our sanskaras. Because of our sanskaras, we may not be able to, our inner eyes might not have be opened to appreciate all this, right? Even if you go and tell of all this to a person, if he's so engrossed in the material world, then he may completely reject this. He says, this is not for me, you go away. He may just ignore you, right? So that only tells that they are not ready for it, right? When they become ready, then this will become available to it. So first of all, you need to have an intention, a desire for that mukti. If you don't have the desire for that mukti, then even if this is presented to you, you will not appreciate it. So even though this is for everybody, Yoganishta Jivanam is for everybody, but if that person is not ready, right, then he will not accept it. So they must be ready. So in today's world, what is happening is that because of sanskaras and because of the environment and because of everything else, people are immersed in it, and it is becoming difficult for them to come out. So we need to try to educate them. We need to give them this option and say there is this yogic life which is available, and if they are ready, they will take it, right? If they are ready, they will take it. So our job, what is our job? What does Parama Purusha want us to do in this situation, in today's world, is first we need to become sadhakas, right? We need to follow everything that has been taught sincerely, and then we need to preach this to others. It will be very, very beneficial for them. It will transform their lives, right? But at the same time, they must be ready for it. If they're not ready for it, then even though you present it, they may reject it. Just like the example that we always give is like a small baby, right? If it is like 1 month baby, and if you're trying to make the baby walk, will it walk? It will not walk, because it is not ready, right? It has to reach a certain stage, and then when it is ready to walk, and then at that time you provide the support, then it will walk. Similarly, everybody in this today's world who are engaged in all the boga, right, if they are not ready, then even though if you offer them the yoganishta jivanam, they will not accept it, because they're still immersed in that material world. But there will be few people who are ready for this, who will accept it, and it will appeal to their heart, and those people will come easily into this yogic path. That is how it is. So it's not that they're not going to offer this to everybody in this world. They're going to offer, because we don't know who is ready and who is not ready. We are not at that stage to decide if somebody is ready or not, right? We have to assume that everybody is ready and offer the yoganishta jivanam, teach it to everybody, preach it to everybody, and encourage them to come into this path. But in case they are not ready, then what can we do? We can't do anything. That is our job. Our job is to try to help everybody. And if somebody is not showing any interest and not having any motivation, then we cannot continue spending time with them. We'll try for some time, and if they're still not interested, then what can we do? Then we'll move on to the next person who is interested. Did it answer your question by any chance?
Yes, that's what I said. Slowly I'm understanding. And how to implement. See, when now reading all this, no, we ourselves have brought our emotions into control for this age, actually. So how to deal with, see, our generation was different. The next generation, after that, it is a little more complicated to deal with, actually. So now this helps us, actually, how to deal with them and how to go along with them. Okay,
it's
now
important to how to yeah, it is not only how to deal with them, but also bring them on the right track. It's also a big task.
Yes.
Build them and bring them on the right track.
In those days, for example, when our parents or our elders used to say something, we used to think of the concept, and then we slowly, now when we were some 40 or 50 years, we used to remember, okay, our parents are telling us, or our elders were telling us. So that is even now, when we make something or when we do something, okay, this is good for you, they used to say. See, for example, even now I follow that. So before 6 o'clock, you get up and you light a lamp in front of God, they say, so that we have been doing it. We never question, for example. But certain people in my age group itself, no, they will say, we have retired, why should we get up at this time in the morning? They will accept it. But these days, the children, if you try to impart something, they are more into that material world of seeing the society in that in the digital world, actually, not live moving with other people. They are more in the digital world. So they get distracted very easily, isn't it?
Yeah. What you're saying is correct. Yeah.
Yes. So what we were able to get 80% very easily, only 20% we can instill in them, and only when they start suffering they will listen, they will remember what we have said, and they will try to impact. That we are seeing practically. No, that's what I wanted to know. See, everything we know. If they have not got married, how to deal with them also, how to bring them out of that and come into this one. That's what I wanted to know. Now you understand what I asked.
No. No. The point is we have to make the effort, Bhagini. The point is how to bring them is we have to make efforts. We have to make adequate efforts to sit down with them and explain to them what yogic life is and how it can transform their lives. And first of all, for that we need to be an example in front of them, right? If we are not an example in front of them, then we cannot influence them. First we need to be an example in front of them, so that how we have transformed our lives, and then say what all it has to offer, and slowly bring them into this path. Then it doesn't matter whether they're married or not married, right? So that is the challenge before you, in terms of how you are going to motivate them and bring them to this path. Right? So that is you have to appeal to them in a way that it appeals to their intellect, to their rationality, and they will be able to see the good things of this, and when they are ready they will come into this. Right? But we have to keep making effort.
Thank you, Bhagini.
We have to continue to make efforts. There is no doubt about it. We have to try. We have to keep trying, right? And not give up. We should keep trying. So if we keep trying, of the 100 things, they may try to do one thing, and slowly one thing after another one thing, then slowly they may come into it, right? So because everybody wants to have a good health, that nobody can deny, right? In today's age, in the digital age, everybody is suffering all lifestyle related diseases. At the age of 40 they have or 35 they have diabetes, right? They are not able to see, they are not able to hear. So many people not able to hear at the age of 35 because of constantly hearing to loud music or whatever. They lose their hearing power, they're losing their eyesight at the age of 35, right? They're getting diabetes, they're getting BP, they're getting all sorts of diseases, and everybody wants to lead a healthy life, no matter whether they're married or not married, right? So this Yoganishta Jeevanam offers that, how to lead a healthy life. That is the first step. So from that angle, if you try to motivate people, they will definitely see the good thing in it, right? Obesity, right? All of those things are there. So first the ahara part, if you're able to convince them with the ahara part, slowly they convince with the ahara part and they implement it, then they'll be convinced, and then slowly you can bring them into this fully into this path, right? The ahara, vyapak soch and all of that, then they can come to the shivir, learn the sadhana, right? So it is a task on our hands, that how we motivate others, right? We have to because we need to actually get ourselves trained in such a way that we are able to do a good job of training others, right? If we are not fully convinced and we are not implementing everything that we are saying, then it becomes difficult to convince others, right? So it is both things, two things. One thing is how we present ourselves to others. That is one thing. We present ourselves in such a way that we are motivating others, right? Just looking at our lives, they feel extremely motivated. That is one thing. And the second thing is that we also need to have proper talent to convince them, right? Convincing others is also a talent, right? And if you convince them in a proper way, then they will be motivated. And whoever you have in mind, you ask them to come to our classes. That will be a good starting point for them. And there are new yogic life classes which will be commencing. Have them enroll into those classes and start attending those classes, because sometimes if the parents tell the children don't listen, and if somebody else tells, then they may be more open minded to listen. Okay
Bhagini, thank you.
So Shukrajyoti Bhagini, do you want to take the next two paragraphs? The next one is a very small one. Are you there, Bhagini? Are you able to hear Subrajyoti Bhagini?
Ma'am, she is not there.
Oh, she's left. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to take Bhagini?
Okay.
Yeah.
Marriage is slightly different from other natural functions in life, such as eating, sleeping, etc. Marriage is not essential for life as our food and sleep. The need for marriage differs with individuals. That is why every individual should have complete freedom in matters of marriage. For example, marriage of those persons who suffer from physical or mental disease, or who are not financially well off, or whose present circumstances are not favorable for marriage, that is where marriage can cause unhappiness, is not desirable. Those who are constantly engaged in the fulfillment of an ideal, or those who have to spend the greater part of their day in earning their livelihood or some mental occupation, should not marry, because they will not find it possible to fulfill their family commitments properly. The marriages of such people are harmful to the society in many cases. Although marriage is not desirable for those who are suffering from some disease or whose circumstances are not favorable to get married, there remains the possibility of their indulging in vices safely if they are not married. To avoid this, they should work for the attainment of some high ideal or do rigorous spiritual practices. The psychological degeneration, which is inherent in the suppression of psychic tendencies, can be avoided only by an effort to fulfill the lofty ideal. That's what. See, that was my question actually, and now it has been answered. Okay, for various aspects, the person, see, food and sleeping is necessary. Marriage is not necessary, especially for people who have some diseases, physical or mental diseases, or who are not able, see, who are not financially well off, and whose present circumstances are not favorable for marriage. That is, they feel unhappy actually. They feel they will be unhappy when they get married. So many things like that, and they feel that they cannot have their commitments to their elders at home, so they don't feel like getting married. That we understand. So, but this in the long run can be harmful also. So they should try to practice some ideals or some religious practice, so that they will not be degenerated psychologically. Instead of getting uh, psychic degeneration, or instead of getting physically degenerated, they should not get psychic degeneration or psychological degeneration. Either they should get married or follow some nice ideals. That is what is said in this paragraph.
Yeah, nicely said. So the only thing is, it's not asking us to follow religious practices, it's asking us to follow the Yoganishta Jivanam. That's what it's saying, right? So the religious practices may be full of dogmas, right? That is not what we're talking about a higher ideal, where we're talking about the spiritual practices, the Yoganishta Jivanam. That's what we're talking about. So in the previous paragraph, what it was said was that marriage is a natural function like bath, food, sleep. So the so-called sannyasis, who actually make people believe that marriage is a crime, they themselves would not be alive if their parents did not marry, right? So here it is being said that marriage is not a bad thing, it is a natural thing like any other thing, like food, sleep, bath. Therefore marriage is not against dharma, and it should not be condemned as a crime, right? Even a sadhaka who is into spirituality is not prohibited from taking food or taking bath or sleep. Therefore there is no reason why he should be prevented from getting married. So a sadhaka, even an elevated sadhaka, even though he is constantly involved in thinking about parama purusha, but even then, for some reason, if you'd like to get married, there is nothing wrong in that. He could get married. He is not debarred from marriage, right? But the thing that needs to be understood over here is that proper control, the indriya nigraha, is required for everybody. and that is required. This proper control is required not only in the case of marriage, but it's required in any aspect of life, in every aspect of life, right? Whether it is food or whatever, right? So everything needs, and we need to exercise restraint, right? We need to eat only food that is good for us, that will help us to grow spiritually. We need to take sattvic ahara, not any kind of ahara, right? So just because bath is refreshing doesn't mean we are going to take bath for long hours, right? Then that is also disease producing, right? And we are also not only wasting water, but also we are affecting our own health. So the marriage has a function in the society. Marriage is required for producing children, but that does not mean that in married life one is constantly thinking about sexual activity, right? Marriage also requires restraint. Absence of restraint will result in diseases, right? So so the following paragraph, what is saying is that marriage is a natural function like bath, food, sleep, right? But it is not essential for life. It is not essential for life. People can live without getting married. Marriage is a natural function in life, and having children similarly is a natural function. So when we talk about great human beings of society, it should not be determined whether that somebody is married or not. It should not be limited to those who did not get married and living the so-called monk life. So that is not the criteria, right? So it is not the criteria for determining who is great. That is the point over here. It has nothing to do with the manava dharma. What determines whether somebody is a human being or somebody is leading an animal life, it has to do with it has nothing to do with whether they are married or not, right? Someone can choose to not to marry and lead a pashu jivanam, right? Somebody can choose to get married and still lead a manava jivanam, right? So getting married is nothing to do with whether somebody is a human being or not, right? So whether somebody is a human in human form or animal in human form is nothing to do with their somebody getting marriage, right? Everything has to do with how they're leading their lifestyle, right? So it has everybody needs to have a control over the various aspects of their life, right? They will not be eating 24 hours of the day. They will not be aiding in sexual matters 24 hours a day. None of these things will be happening if somebody leads yoganishta jivanam, right, where they are a human in human form, right? So whether whether you see anybody who is a monk, whether they are male or female, sannyasi or not a sannyasi, right? So what ultimately determines is that whether they are following yogic life or not, right? It's nothing to do with whether they are married or not married, right? So that is what this paragraph is talking about. If somebody is proper spiritual life, then they won't have any attraction to the crude things, right? If they're following here it's not talking about religious practices, because if people follow religious practices and still get attracted to the crude things, right? They may be doing all the spiritual things, they may be doing all the religious rituals and all that, but still they may be leading an animal life. That is not what we're talking about here. In order to avoid these crude things, one needs to come into the yoganishta jivanam and start following the spiritual practices that we're talking about, the proper spiritual practices. When they follow the proper spiritual practices, then the attraction to these things will naturally get eliminated. We don't need to do anything. It will get naturally eliminated by sincerely following these practices. And for that, we don't need to think about being a sannyasi or whether we are married, non-married, none of that, right? So the physical pressures, everything will get controlled by leading a yoganishta, shuddha yoganishta jivanam, right? It is not a superficial outer show, right? So anybody who is following the dharmic life, yoganishta jivanam, they may be married, not married, it has nothing to do with it. It is not an issue, right? And when they lead such a life, then they will have the natural outcome of yoganishta jivanam is control in all the areas, whether it is food, whether it is sex, or whether it is anything, right? Any aspect of life, complete discipline will come into the person's life, right? His swabhava will completely change, right? They will develop bhakti bhava for parama purusha, attraction for parama purusha, and then the kundalini is awakened. The spiritual energy which is present in the muladhara chakra at the base of the spine that starts to move upwards, right? When it starts to move upwards, then the person spiritually progresses. He will have control over everything in life, right? You don't need to do anything extra, right? That is what is being said over here. Okay.
Thank you, Bhagini.
Yeah, so we will any other questions, Bhagini?
No.
Okay.
I think I will ponder over this. If I have any questions, I'll ask in the next.
Okay, very good, Bhagini. Thank you. Dhanyawadaha. Namaskar.
Dhanyawadaha. Namaskar.
ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಗೋಲಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಹೋರಾಟ